let's just go chronological to how we first, I know when I first got involved with this particular spot, and it came about when the Fairmount, that's what first piqued my interest in it, when John Michaels.
I mean, I feel like this was not on anyone's radar until that comment. And it's like, that was the one when Gerald Gay, like, I feel like we started now, by the way. That was when Gerald Gay did the fake San Francisco cask, and John called somebody associated with the book and told them that San Francisco was found, and the first words they said was, "Oh wow, they must have figured out the Fairmont clue," or they said Fairmount.
Said Fairmount.
Fairmount clue.
Very important for a San Francisco or a Bay Area native to make to distinguish those two, because that threw me for a loop.
Well, that clicked some stuff with me too, because when we were all working with Expedition Unknown just before the San Francisco episode came out, we were all working with the Expedition Unknown, and Josh Gates, when he was looking in San Francisco, I remember, Matt, you and JM were digging there, and when all that was going on, I was talking to Josh, just like giving support or advice or whatever, and he said he had been given the hint that the letter F was very important. And I like when he said that, I was like, I don't know how that means. Like, it's the letter F. And then when John heard the Fairmount clue, it was like, oh, that's what the F is.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you look at the image, and there's a pretty damn close effigy of the older Fairmont F in the rose stem.
Yeah, and I would say like that logo has changed quite a bit, but in the 80s, it was pretty damn well exact.
Well, all right. The F that is on the corner of the building by Powell, and the big cement, not the one by the front.
In brick or rock. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cement. Yeah. But that one hasn't changed since then.
Yeah, and there's also, when we went into the Fairmont, if you're going like up the steps, there's like brass plates on the steps with the original Fairmont logo. And like, I remember pointing at that with Brett and being like, oh, that's the first time I'd ever seen the original F. And I was like, wow, it's just like the rose stem.
The one in the rose. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there's no question. It's just there.
I was just going to say that also set afoot us looking at things in the image and matching them up with things, right? Like, I know we've been doing that for, of course, decades and stuff, but like that, I could never really, except for a few things in the image. I'm just looking at it right now, like the hairline, and, I see the California coastline in her sleeve. And, I think the rose, Matt, you pointed this out too. The rose looks like Angel Island. But the F really drove home like, okay, not only is this San Francisco, but there's stuff in this image that like totally, that okay, everything that we've been thinking over years, like now it totally makes sense. Or now it's like connecting for me.
I mean, over the years, we've been working on this, 6 years now?
I beg your pardon?
Me and Brett.
Okay.
Me and Brett have been working on it like 5 or 6 years.
Matt's been working like maybe 2-3 years on it. Yeah, a couple of years.
What? Months. Yeah.
Couple of months. Newbie.
So,
Matt's been working for 60 years on it.
Like, since, I think when it first got into everybody's head, when me and Brett picked it up heavily, was during the Gerald Gay thing. So I think that was like 6 years ago, right?
Yeah.
5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And
this spot.
Well,
yeah,
I was elsewhere.
I mean, a month after the Gerald Gay thing, JM and I went to, drove around the Fairmont.
If you do that, you don't really pick up on anything because nothing that you need to look for is there now.
I'm driving, he's looking, he's driving, I'm looking. We're not seeing anything.
Well, so let's go back 6 years where Brett, I think I just had a phone call with you, and then we were trying to figure out, like if this is important, how it could be important to the overall solve. Because I still think we weren't like, this is going to be buried somewhere on the hotel grounds. We thought this was going to be like a first step. We had to get somebody that was local with a little bit of pull. Is that why we went to Golden Gate? Or was Golden Gate just in the conversation from the beginning?
You guys got together and brought me in because I'm local, feet on the street.
Was that
so it was, I'm going to say it was John Hardepy, Golden Gate, and you. And then you guys started already talking about stuff, and there was already some solving in motion. You brought me in because out of us four, I was the only person local.
I remember the way I remember it happening. I don't remember how it got started with the four of us. What I remember happening was, once the Fairmount came out, talking with John and talking with Golden Gate, and I remember Golden Gate immediately saying, "There is a brick wall with a door. There's not a brick wall, but a stone wall with a door. It's a very small stone wall on the side of the Fairmount, with a door on it." And he's like, that would be the perfect Stonewall's door. It's just so simple. It's literally just a stone wall with a door.
Right.
And then I remember John Hardepy very, very quickly. I think this is what cemented this area for me. Very, very quickly said, Stanford Court's great for education and justice.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the most creative clues that I've seen Byron use. Like, education and justice for all to see, Stanford Court. There's nothing more simple than that.
John Michaels saying that he heard tell of a Fairmount in San Francisco was my first, wonder what that's all about. You know, obviously I know the Fairmont. I've stayed there before. It's right across from where I got married, you know, all that stuff, right? So I'm pretty familiar with the area. And, you know, by the way, dude, we were in Huntington Park, which is right there, and found some things that were fitting. But I mean, you know, especially a giant pole. But so the Fairmount thing was a big deal. And I laid awake at night pondering, did he screw up? Who screwed up Fairmont?
Yeah.
Who said Fairmount? Who said Fairmont? And I just was super bummed out, because the problem is there's a Fairmount like district of San Francisco too.
And there's more than one Fairmont building in San Francisco. There's one down by Aquatic Park as well. It's just a parking garage, but it's a Fairmont. It's got a big ass Fairmont sign on it.
Yeah. So
it kind of also has the Aces High on it.
Yes. Kind of screwed us up there for a little bit. And then things started to come into motion and people started really looking into the Fairmont.
Yeah.
Which is when you guys brought me in. I was looking, but I was like, you know, the F kind of looks like an F, but you know, all that stuff. But
so we're starting to hone in on the Fairmont, right? We're starting to try to figure out. And I think at this point, we still think that this is like a puzzle that's going to lead us somewhere, because like, why else is Golden Gate Park in the image? You know, if we don't have to go somewhere, like we still haven't really put everything together. But I think at this point was when we decided that we needed to get permission, or we needed to start trying to get permission from the hotel to do anything, because the Fairmont's not like a Super 8. It's the jewel of San Francisco. Like the tagline for their title is a hotel so nice they built a city around it. You know, like it's not somewhere you can just screw around.
It's a flagship.
It's the flagship of Fairmont Hotels and the jewel of San Francisco. I think at this point, Golden Gate's like, we need to start trying to figure out who we can contact.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then he pretty quickly zeroed in on the Fairmont's concierge, Tom Wolfe.
He found doing a ton of research, as he always does. He found Golden Gate found the head concierge of the Fairmont, and who's been there for decades, I don't know, 40 years. I'm just making that up, but
he's been there a long time.
And with the right personality, the guy is super awesome, right? So somebody
the coolest dude.
He's just cool. And like into stuff like this too. So Golden Gate found like the perfect person. So Tom does viral videos on behalf of the hotel, and he's just like a wealth of information and like a historian of the hotel because he's been there forever. So Golden Gate goes, hey, GG goes, hey, Brett, I'm going to be up in San Francisco in 2 weeks, and I got this guy to email me back. And he's X, Y, and Z, you know? So we book a day and we meet him. And Golden Gate comes into the city. It's me and him. We both have our books with us, and we start explaining this. We piqued his interest earlier, but like we start explaining this fantastical, crazy. He must have been thinking, what are these guys up to?
Wait, you got to set the stage, because you didn't just like go to the Fairmont to meet. He had very specific requirements for how you meet him. He said yes, right? He said yes on one of his days off, he would meet you, but you had to buy him a drink at the Huntington Hotel.
We had to meet at it's the Huntington Hotel, but it's like called the Big Three Bar or something like that.
Yeah,
super swank bar, but he didn't require that. He just said. He was kind of jokingly saying, like, we need to go out and have a drink afterwards at the Big Three. I think it's called the Big Three. I'll look it up. But he definitely wanted to
the Big Four.
The Big Four, yeah. So we meet this dude. So we just, and this is the first time I'm meeting Golden Gate, by the way. So that was kind of fun. And so the two of us high five. We're like, all right, let's go do this. We find Tom, and we open this book and we just tell him, this is what we think, and these are the things that we've heard, and all of the paths, all the roads are leading here. And I know it sounds bizarre, you know, one day we'd like to like get a little more serious about this, and could you help us out? And so we did a little walking tour outside. He was the one. So when we read him the verse, he's like, wait, the air smells sweet. So there used to be a candy shop right here that had like a ventilation tube right next to this stone door that would pipe out the scent of candy and sweets. So if you stood here, you could just smell. You could smell like sweet smell right next to Stonewall's door, and we're like, okay, that's like.
I remember he called it the Sweet Shop, but it has a different name, right, Matt?
It was the Sweet Corner. Okay. The Sweet Corner. And in the 70s and 80s in San Francisco, there was a company called Blums, Blums. And their big thing was Blums ice cream. And it was a San Francisco, fixture. Yeah, that was the thing and all right, so Blums had shops like all around in, South San Francisco. They had one in Stonestown Mall. They had the Sweet Corner in the right above the stone door. And they had ice cream, candies, cinnamon rolls, all kinds of confections. They made fudge, and they would pump the smell out because you couldn't exhaust it into the main foyer of the hotel, so they had to put it somewhere.
And I think it's important to let people know this isn't like an exhaust vent that's just down the street a little bit on the other side of the building. This is, as soon as you walk out of the Stonewall's door, the exhaust vent is like 2 feet to your right above your head.
If you stood at that door, you could smell sweet pumping out of a pipe.
They were pumping the smell to that door.
With a gigantic sign that said Sweet Corner.
So Golden Gate's instinct of asking this guy, like, for me, that was my major aha moment, because there were probably at that time, there were 4 or 5 big questions I had about the Fairmont generality or locale. That clicked it. That really, we both looked at each other and went, "Oh my God, you're kidding me." So anyway, we talked to him for a couple of hours about this crazy hunt that we're on, and then we all went and got a drink at the Big Four, and of course they know him there really well, right? He probably goes in there maybe even during lunchtime and gets his signature drink, which is this gin martini with a little drop of vermouth and an onion and an olive, and it is the most delicious martini that I've ever had, because of its like simplicity. It's like what a martini is supposed to be. And we just ended up shooting the shit with him for another couple hours, and consider him a friend now. You know, I've seen him probably 5 or 6 times, and he's just one of those old school San Francisco dudes that you just being around him is a pleasure.
One of the other things that I remember about that meeting, something else that he gave us that was pretty major, was, you're right, we had a whole lot of questions when we went in this, because a lot of this stuff we just didn't know. This was sort of reconnaissance and just setting up to get permission. I remember that you were saying that you and Golden Gate were sitting there showing him, like you had brought a big printout of the painting, and you were showing him different stuff, and you were like, and this rose kind of similar to the F, because it kind of looks like it, but not so much. And I remember him going, no, that's the 80s F. He's like, it's a perfect match for the 80s F. The F has changed a little bit. So I remember him giving us the sweet corner and that F, because up until that point, I figured the F had never changed.
That, and we asked him some things that we already kind of knew and wanted to confirm with him about, like sounds from the sky, which I'm sure we'll get in. Matt can explain that to us in a little bit. And then just sort of walk through it's funny because the questions that he had about the verse were the same ones that we had, like some things we were nailing down together. And then he's like, Twain's attention. And we told him what we thought. And he's like, ooh. But awesome guy.
So far at the verse, we've got Stonewall's door, the air smells sweet. If you're standing at Stonewall's door, you've got the air smells sweet right beside you. Directly across the street is a Stanford Court, where there are, and this is lame, but it's true, 3 wooden flagpoles up high above the top of the mark. They're wooden. They've always been wooden.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's on the Stanford Court. So that led us, like, if we're walking this verse, we walked from the Fairmont's door, where the air smelled sweet, across the street to the flagpoles, and then just down the block to where the big Stanford Court side is.
Credit where credit's due, though. Who came up with, or the first I heard, Education and Justice was
John Hardipee.
John Hardipee, 100%. And that was before we met with Tom Wolfe. So we got to actually say, hey, somebody from our group of 4 came up with this one. What do you think? And he was like, genius, right?
I think that was the clue that cemented all of us. Like, we're at least in the right area. There's no way that's right.
When you and I were on the phone, when you brought me in, George, I was standing in front of Stonewall's door, and you said, look across the street. And it was like, okay, Stanford Court, I'm hooked. We're here.
Yeah. So if you're standing at the Stanford Court now, and you're looking for sounds from the sky, there's nothing there.
Correct.
But
right
in 1981, there was KSFO, the Sounds of San Francisco.
Yep. Which the radio station's still around, by the way. You can still
it's still a major. I think it's only AM, right? Like, it's an AM station.
It is 560.
But it's the main radio station for San Francisco. It's the sound of San Francisco.
And it was, that sign was directly across the street from the Stanford Court courtyard.
And we're not talking about a small sign. It took up like 2 stories. It was huge. And then on to After Sounds from the Sky, the most overthought line from any secret verse ever, I would think, Near Aces High, which turns out to be a sign. A sign, a giant A with wings. The Flying A Service Center. Flying A was an oil company. I think it was Alliance Oil. Not real sure. But they also had service centers and they maintained parking garages. They did a lot of stuff. And they were stationed inside of the Fairmont's parking garage. So there was a giant Flying A sign.
Okay, now, to be fair, okay, when you brought me in, okay, we talked about Ace parking, and I was absolutely unequivocally told that there wasn't one there.
Yeah, Golden Gate was pretty dead set on that having been removed in like the 60s or something. We found pictures of it after that. And then I had to go to, I went to Linda Spalding, because she used to work for a title company and she could get information on like past owners of businesses, past properties and stuff. And I had her look at all of the businesses that were operating on that 4 corners of Powell and California in the late 70s, early 80s. And Flying A Service was still in the parking garage in 1981. And then later on, we talked to Tom, who also confirmed that they were still there in like the early 80s.
Tom remembered.
So, yeah. So we're pretty set.
So we found a 1955 YouTube video of the Powell Street cable car that crests the top of the hill there, California. And Ella Fitzgerald is playing in the theater at the Fairmont. And right behind that is the big red Flying Ace sign.
What's the latest photo? Because this is like, it's the back of a building. It's not the most photographed place in the world. I think the latest photo we found was like 65 or something, right? Or 70.
So this is a postcard of the back, and it shows the KSFO, and it shows what replaced the red Flying Ace service sign with a blue Ace parking sign.
So we've got Sounds from the Sky. We've got Aces High. We've got Running North First Across. Like, we argue that I say you have to go north, but first you have to cross the street. You think it's related to the you, Matt, think it's related to the cable cars. Either way, it works.
Kind of works.
You know?
Yeah.
So then we end up standing at the back of the Fairmont at this planter box looking for an object of Twain's attention.
But if you're on Powell and the intersection of Powell and California, and you look past the Fairmont, there's an obvious one right there. And that's the trouble with the object of Twain's attention, is that there is no obvious, you stand anywhere in San Francisco, anywhere, you are near something.
My thing is, what I kind of thought, and it's impossible to prove or disprove, but it was my thought. When you're looking there now, you're looking at the waterfront. You're looking near where the steamboats are. The steamboats, you can't see the steamboats now, but who's to say in 1981 the steamboat wasn't just there?
I will say that. I know where they were. They were on.
No, yeah. You know where they docked, but you can't say there wasn't one there. I mean, they're legitimately like just off to the right, So if I had to bet money on anything, I would bet there was a steamboat there for some reason at one of the docks where you could see it.
There likely was, and I think when we were there recently, you could see one there.
Barely.
Yeah, you could see the like. Here's my problem with anything that's related to that, looking all the way out in the bay, is that everything so far, and even after this in the verse, is right there in front of you. So why does Pryce suddenly call your attention?
I would say this is different because he's giving you a direction to travel, right? He's specifically in this spot saying the jewel is in this direction, you know? So it doesn't necessarily, like, but from this point forward, it's point A to point B to point C to point D. And now he's saying, maybe go across the street or maybe this cable car. Either way, you're at a 4-way stop. You got to go this way.
Yeah, I get that. And I bought into that eventually. I'm still think that there's something Twain related that's gone that was right there.
It probably is. I mean, considering everything that we've got so far is not there anymore.
And the fun, you know, yeah, totally. That's, and just to finish this thought real quick, in Jules' direction, so there's no jewel in the cask.
But poetically, the nickname of the Fairmont is the Jewel of San Francisco.
Right. And that was
could be in Jules' direction.
That could be. I'm just saying, like, the jewel itself they're in his safety deposit box, and if that's what he's talking about, so it must be something, right? It must be something else.
One of those three is true, and I don't think we're going to be able to figure out which one it is. It's either Angel Island, it's a steamboat, or it's not there anymore. But either way, just following the point-to-point clues, we're going that way anyway.
Yes,
that's true. But the one thing, you know, I mean, the one object of Twain's attention in the image is Angel Island.
So we end up there. We end up at this this planter box. Matt, you're already kind of in the fold here. You discovered that in the 80s, in a very specific spot of the Fairmont, there was a giant flagpole. So it just happens to be above the, the fourth row of, so in this planter box is kind of high up. There are breezeway blocks, which are like hollow bricks that allow air to go into the parking garage and come out. And you can count them. We were trying to figure out a way to tie the image to the to this, to give us, because we didn't really have a spot that we wanted to explore, right? So we were trying to figure out maybe the image does that, and we noticed, like everyone does, that the lady, the figure in the painting, is pointing to very specific blocks. She's pointing to the bottom of the third block and the bottom of a fourth block, isolating a fourth block. And this building has a bunch of breezeway blocks. And we noticed that if you counted to the fourth breezeway block, directly above you is a giant flagpole. And you're standing in front of a planter box that's about chest high.
Yeah.
Yep.
It would be a giant step up there.
Yes.
Yep.
That's what we wanted to explore.
We did want to explore that.
We wanted to explore that really bad. But getting permission to do this has been a pain. Because like I said, you guys met with Tom before COVID, right?
Yeah. We met with Tom right before COVID. We were getting pretty close in terms of like trying to settle on a spot and maybe asking him to dig. And then we sent a couple of emails, and then suddenly COVID hit. And basically he kind of went on furlough.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom was super into it, and he hooked us up with two people that worked at the Fairmont at the time, who we'll get to that. And they were super into it. It was like a media guy and their film crew, or the Fairmont's film crew, or something.
PR guy.
They were super. Yeah, it was a PR guy and a media guy, and they were super into it. And we had set a date to dig, and their media people were going to be there. Everybody was going to be there, and then COVID happened, and that got canceled. And then the entire city of San Francisco shut down, and that's when I think me and you went to. I just took a trip to the Fairmont took a trip to San Francisco during COVID. We met up with Golden Gate, and me and you and Golden Gate all went to the Fairmont. We sat on the planter box. We were there for 2 minutes, and the cops came.
Cops immediately showed up.
The cop looks at me and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just playing in the dirt." And he's like, "Well, you can't do that. That's private property. Move along." "All right, officer, I can do that." So we really couldn't do anything, but we didn't have permission, so it wasn't like we were going to anyway. But
we were checking it out for viability. And which we had been doing for a year, circling it, basically, if I'm Byron Preiss, where am I burying this thing, right?
I think that was my first time there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I was really excited.
Yeah.
So we left there, and then another year passed or so, and San Francisco started opening back up. We got hooked back up with the PR and the media guy. They were super down for it, but they were really busy because the city was opening back up. They wanted us to wait 5 or 6 months or whatever. We waited that, reached back out to them, and both of them had left.
Yep.
The Fairmont. Both of them had quit their jobs, taking jobs somewhere else.
Tom
so we're
was
back to square one again.
Tom was back, but only like part-time, and yeah.
But that like year and a half, 2-year process of figuring out and getting permission had to be started all over again.
Yeah.
So we did. And in that time, we were still wanting to check things out. I remember Stephen Barker was taking his GPR to San Francisco, and he hooked up with you, Matt, and you guys GPR'd all of the planter boxes along California Street, right?
From the bottom, from like down by the Tonga Room all the way to the top along California.
We basically cleared those planter boxes along California.
All the planter boxes next to the Fairmont, attached to the wall, top to bottom.
All clear.
All clear. We did. But do we want to talk at all about the wrong things we suspected at times when we were there? Grace Cathedral.
There were a lot of them.
As a long list.
Object of Twain's attention, and
I think because all of this came in sort of piecemeal, right? Like, because it's all historical stuff. Nothing is there anymore. So we were always like, all along the way, we were guessing.
Right. Well, when you told me about it the very first time, and I was standing in front of Stonewall's door, and I was like, okay, that's where KSFO was. Oh my God, Stanford Court, look, the three poles. I'm here. And I said, so what's Twain's attention? And you said, we don't have one.
Yeah. Well, and you said Brett had come up with Grace Cathedral a long time ago.
Yes.
But we didn't agree on it. So that's really why we didn't have one. There was sort of both Brett and I were looking towards Grace Cathedral, but for different reasons. Brett thought the object of Twain's attention was just Grace Cathedral. I thought it was as well, but with the addendum of Ace is High, I thought was a play on words for Grace is High, because at this point in the verse, we're standing at the corner of Powell and California. We figured that meant we had to go back up towards Grace Cathedral. And we noticed that the figure in the image is making a very specific shape, like the outline is a very specific shape, which matches pretty perfectly to the windows on the side of the Fairmont Hotel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we figured it's leading us back up that way. We were looking for a giant pole and a giant step. The planters are in stepped patterns. And there's one giant street light, I think, that was right by the, like if you were going to step up into one of the planters. So we were thinking, go back up towards Grace Cathedral, find this giant pole, step into the planter, dig right there. And that's why we were GPRing those planters.
Well, and also there is a light post, just a standard San Francisco street light.
I don't think we ever actually confirmed either, because there's always been suspicion that there was a San Francisco light post in the image, but it's a very specific style. And I know that the light post that's there now was not there in 81. You can actually go on the sidewalk and see where the light post was. Like there's still the indentation on the sidewalk. It was moved just a little bit. And we never really confirmed if in 81 those old school light posts were there.
But was a giant pole in the middle of Huntington Park.
I really like that. Yeah, that's what we were looking at when we were talking to Expedition Unknown, because I was getting I was doing Freedom of Information Act request on all the plans from when they changed the park, and we got all those PDFs and where the flagpole used to be. And I remember we looked there because the base of the flagpole is still there. It's just inside of a planter now. I don't know. There were so many things that we tried that just didn't work.
I wanted it to just be a giant pole. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have to read into it. You know what I mean? Or interpret it and then create pareidolia, or however you pronounce that word.
I think back then we just weren't in the mindset of this might be dumb. This might be simple. It might just be like a bunch of signs. I think back then we were like, this has got to be creative in some way.
Yeah.
So maybe Aces High is pointing us back this direction, or maybe the object that swings attention is Grace Cathedral and not just, maybe Aces, not just a sign. I don't know. But I think when we figured out the Ace sign being there, that's what cemented us to, you got to be at the back of the ceremony.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the mistakes were made. I was in Golden Gate Park.
Years worth.
Yeah.
Many, many years of silly interpretations of things. And I'm just I'm like 99.9% on this. I'm just going to tell you guys. And I've never been that
I'm beyond that. Okay. I mean, it's down to, there.
So it's 6 years after we've started. We are 99% sure. We know we have one line of the verse that we don't completely understand. We're at that point. One line of the verse that doesn't have a dead simple, a dead simple, this is this explanation.
Yep.
And coupled on that, we've got a bunch of stuff from the images that make sense. Like the mountains in the image never made any sense. They don't look like any mountains around there. People always say they see shit in them. But the simplest explanation for it is they're not mountains, they're hills, and they damn sure are knobby, It's just knobby hills.
Maybe just knob hills.
And then a bunch of the symbols in the dress are all around that area. Like the 3 balls are right on top of the transfer station for or the ticket station for the cable car.
And the other symbols on the dress basically look like pre-1992 cable car direction lights and paint on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So striping on the road, and the lights go up, go forward, go back, go left, go right. That's what those look like to me.
Yeah. There's a yin and yang. I think there's a couple of things in here drawing you to Chinatown, which this is a block away from, if not completely connected to Chinatown. Like you said, the rose itself, the red rose, the top of it looks like Angel Island to me. It's a really good match for that. I think the round table looks like
the turnaround,
a cable car turnaround.
You've got the outline of a cable car.
Yeah, the outline of a cable car, which I resisted for years.
Me too.
But
that's what it is.
It is.
That's what it is.
Freaking
there. To be clear, the cable car round table is at both ends of the Powell Street. There's a turnaround on both ends. So Powell Street goes right past this.
There's a backwards GH, which has been much debated.
So if you go down that hill, you will see the backward.
That's where you end up.
Yeah.
At the Ghirardelli Square. And behind the Ghirardelli's sign, just like we always thought, or I don't know, but many of us thought.
I mean,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah. I hated it.
Yeah.
I did
too.
I mean, I think everybody hated it because it's just so simple. And you're like, oh no, this puzzle has to be more creative.
Yeah,
but it doesn't.
No that's that. It's not.
If you go down California, if you go up California, it runs straight into Lincoln Park, and there's Lincoln in the picture. I mean, California ends right into Lincoln.
Yeah.
So
I also think that the puzzles vary in difficulty. Well, I don't know if we agree on that, but I think they vary in difficulty.
Yeah, I also agree.
And I think the image is part of that. Like the ones that got found quicker had more, like the image was a little bit easier to interpret. And like Cleveland had the actual like big spot thing in it. The monument or whatever that is, right? Like the harder ones, and I think they're New York, for example, and San Francisco. I think the image is only drawing you into the city. It's just like a city confirmation with maybe a couple little call outs to, like the F for Fairmont, right? Yeah. But I think that's why this one is difficult.
Well, I don't know that
one of the reasons
it would have been difficult if you were here in 1982, because it was all right there.
I mean, so the
would have been hard for me. I was 12. There's no way I was going to be.
Well, so imagine the thing that sealed the ease of this in 1982-ish for me was around that time there was a very, very popular TV show. It was super popular. It was called Hotel. And it was based, and it's a national TV show, nationally syndicated, almost like Dallas or something. It was like a competitor for Dallas. It was called Hotel, and the hotel that it was based on was the Fairmont San Francisco. And the opening credits for this is a montage of the window of the San Francisco, the outline of the shape. Like they would have the outline of the shape, and then they would cut in guest stars, or they would cut in who's starring in this episode or whatever. So very in your face in the 80s would be this TV show screaming at you, here is the shape of this painting. It's an arched window, just like the painting is an arch, with the figure inside of it. It looks just like the painting. So it's 6 years later. It's 6 years after we've started this. And there's a lady filming a documentary. And I kind of figured, if we're going to end this, if we're ever going to get permission again, now is probably the time to do it. So we hook up with the documentary lady, and we send an email to the Fairmont, and we ask for permission to check out this area. And we received a response that allowed us to clear the back planter box, right? Are we comfortable saying that?
Yeah.
Like we've cleared it. There's nothing there.
Nothing there, top to bottom.
So the Fairmont would like to make a couple of things clear. All of the planters for the Fairmont have been cleared. The Fairmont is well aware of this treasure hunt and does not want people to reach out about it to them. They don't want to hear from you because they're aware. Their maintenance is aware, their security is aware, their management's aware. And if anything should be found on Fairmont property, they're going to call us, right? Immediately, they're going to call us. They wanted to let people know that if you email them, they're just going to ignore you, no matter what. They're not going to entertain anything. And if they catch anyone digging on their property, they will press charges to the fullest extent that they can. And if you damage anything, they will sue you for damages. So maybe leave the Fairmont alone at this point. Like, I feel like to us, we got to a point in this treasure hunt where we have one question: what is the object of Twain's attention, right? We're in a spot. We've got to be somewhere around there, but that one line could lead you to somewhere else, right? It could lead you a block away. It could lead you to another building. It could lead you anywhere.
It could.
You could.
Although,
you could go down the hill towards GH towards Angel Island. You could go past there's nothing stopping you. You could look across the street at the Mark Hopkins or Stanford Court.
Full warning though. The one time me and Brett were around there poking around, we had the cops called. The cops were there within minutes. Another time that we were down there, both the Fairmont security and security from the building across the street were on us in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's like the back of the building has a giant camera pointing directly at this planter box.
The area is under 24-hour video.
Yeah, it is secure.
Yeah. I was going to point out the other people that are aware of this are San Francisco Police Department, as you just pointed out, and as we found out pretty quick. Now, we didn't do anything, so it was cool. We just had a chit chat with them, but
yeah. Here's something Matt brought up though that's not cleared and is not Fairmont property are those trees on the sidewalk.
Okay, on the sidewalk, right along California, also along Powell, there are 3x3 holes cut in the sidewalk for trees to grow out of.
Yeah.
And that's city property, not Fairmont property. You'd have to work with the city to get permission to check those out.
And I feel kind of dumb now that we think about that, because right behind our prime location, like if you were standing looking at the planter box exactly where we thought we should dig, directly behind us is a tree.
Yeah, but is that a giant step? Is that a,
yeah,
is that
I get
right
it.
under a pole? You know what I mean?
So this is counter this if this idea of the Fairmont Hotel is counter to everything everyone's believed about The Secret since this book came out. This is not a city park. This is not public property. This is not somewhere that's easy to dig. But we were convinced, and I think the clues would convince us on their own, but the secondary information locks this in for me. That story about Byron and Sandy going on a date at the Tonga room, Byron leaving for 15 minutes because he had to bury something, and then coming back to their date seals it for me. Because what's easier than leaving the Tonga room, going out to the parking garage, wherever your car is, going in the trunk, getting your shovel, walking right outside of that parking garage, not 3 feet away to a planter box, digging a hole, leaving a cask, walking back to your car, putting everything away, and then going back to your date. That's about the only place that story could be true.
That's true. Matt, but the question comes up, George, is why isn't it there?
Well, so one of the things that we did talk to, because we had a chance to talk to Fairmont maintenance, and they said one of the big problems with this area is that when they redid this side of the building, they did it incorrectly back in the 60s, right? When they built the tower and they did this side of the building, they did it incorrectly. And there are massive, not massive, but there have been persistent structural and drainage issues in this area. And that they've removed that, they've dug out the planter box. They fixed all of that. They've installed wiring and lighting and plumbing and drainage systems. They put in bushes. Now it's bamboo. So it's possible over 40 years with them removing all of this stuff and with them doing all of this work in there that it's just gone. I talked, the maintenance people said, this is the way that maintenance is done there, the people that were doing the maintenance, number one, wouldn't have really looked for any, debris would be debris to them. They're not looking for a treasure cask. Yeah. If they found broken pottery, they just throw it away.
And in the 90s, if somebody was digging there to work on the, and that's usually that, as I understand it, early 90s is when there was a lot of maintenance done back there. Okay. In the early 90s, if you were to have dug up a cask in your hands and you didn't have a copy of the book, you would have absolutely no idea what it was and no way of finding out what it was. Okay, so here's an opportunity for somebody. Hey, do you know somebody who was a maintenance worker in the early 90s in San Francisco? Did they find something weird and put it on their shelf?
Yeah.
Maybe it's still sitting there.
John always did say, like, he bets that there's a construction worker with a cast just sitting on his mantle and has no idea what it is.
No, there's at least
one.
At least one in like 9 cities is what I'm thinking. But yeah, like back to your point, George, if you put together like anecdotal information, like, the dinner that they had and the stories that have been told and the Fairmount stuff, right? And you put that in one category, and then historically the things that we know about San Francisco and the image and the burst, like if you put those 4 things together, I've never been as convinced of something as I am now. And this took a shit ton of work and a lot of input by a lot of people who have been into doing this for decades. And I'm, people that I respect and appreciate their opinions on. And, I feel pretty good about it.
I think it shows this is the hardest place I've ever worked to get permission. But it shows that even in the most hard places, even in the most historical buildings, the most important properties, like this hotel isn't a Super 8. Presidents stay at this hotel. Like kings stay at this hotel. That's where they stay when they come to San Francisco. But if you're persistent and you're not crazy and you work with the people you're asking for permission, eventually you can get it, no matter how hard it's going to be. Like, as long as you just keep at it, you can get permission.
And you think about the route that we took on this one and the pandemic that was in the middle of the whole thing and how this all came around and came about. And, we had as big of challenges as anywhere else in the country, Milwaukee or wherever else. And, we figured out a path, right? So this one was interesting. It just goes to show, like, you just got to find the right person that kind of has sort of a mind for stuff like this. You know what I mean? Find the whimsical person that can help you.
Yeah. There's always one of those somewhere.
Yeah. There's one of us everywhere.
Yeah.
You just got to find us.
So the rule Byron gave us before he passed was there's no find unless you have a cask in your hand. So it's got to stay open-ended.
Oh, yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not looking any further for San Francisco.
I haven't heard anybody give me anything better than this for San Francisco.
No.
Ever.
Never.
I hate to say it.
And anytime, the thing that kept getting me back was anytime we said, well, this doesn't quite work, that doesn't quite, a little more research.
Oh, there comes Flying Ace. There comes Sound from the Sky. There comes the
sweet corner.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, everything is there.
Yeah.
The biggest downfall that searchers have right now, and we had the same downfall, was relying on current information. Every single thing about this idea is gone. It was there in the 80s. It's not there anymore.
There's three things still there. I mean, the Stonewall store is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stonewall store is there. Stanford Court is there.
Yes.
The High Post 3 is there.
Yeah.
And the window is there.
The window
is there.
Yeah.
The window is there. The hole for her cuffs
are
still
there. Yeah. But any definitive tying, Ace's High is gone, Sounds from the Sky is gone, Air smells sweet's gone.
The unique things
are gone.
that you needed to confirm this shit, it's all gone. You wouldn't even be able to walk up to the fair. If you even knew about this puzzle and you walked up to the Fairmont area in like anytime after like 1995 or something, you wouldn't see anything that occurred to you.
I know. John Michaels and I going, okay, we know there's a Fairmont clue. Spent the better part of a day circling the Fairmont, going, I don't see anything.
You knew.
I don't. Yeah.
Sans one letter, which is the U of Fairmount, you knew it was at the Fairmont, or like, you know, technically, like, this is a major place we should be looking, is the Fairmont.
Yeah.
And nothing is there, you know, and it, like I said, anecdotal, historical, verse, image, and then like a whole bunch of just people from all different areas and backgrounds and putting
and then
together.
You stand there and it sneaks up on you.
I'll have to list everybody in this. There's probably been 30 people that have worked on this.
Yeah.
Off and on.
Yeah. I by no means am some like original member of something. You guys added me at some point and I was like,
You've been around for a while.
George brought me in. I was totally in the wrong spot.
I was
George
too.
George brought me in and said, hey, all right, yeah, okay, I'm standing here. And he's like, turn around, Stonewall's door, right? Oh, crap. Well, okay, yeah. And then he's like, okay, look down the hill. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And the radio station.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
See, the thing with you, Matt, is I didn't think I could convince you until I got to a certain point.
Well,
because every time we talked about San Francisco,
you said Stanford Court. I went,
you're a tough dude to like
you're a tough dude.
Sway in any, you're pretty set in your have been.
It was like once I was there and you said, look down the hill at Stanford Court, there was 3 flagpoles, which I knew to be wooden at that point. You know, it's like, oh God, this is so obvious at this point.
See, the beauty of adding me to this is that I'm dumb and gullible. And so you guys could push me in any direction that you wanted to go. And I was like all over it. But it turns out this time, I think we're right.
Yeah. I think so too.
It took us a better part of a year to turn the corner though.
No, yeah.
We were going on California. It took us.
I did that
better
too.
Part of a year.
I have recently been with one of our better known minds of the secret down to St. Mary's and across the street in the plaza there in the park across the street from St. Mary's church, looking there too. So like even in the last.
Well, yeah, under the St. Mary's Park right now is an Ace parking garage.
Yes.
With a sign.
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't there in the 80s.
Yes.
Okay. I looked it up in the phone.
Yes. Exactly.
No, it was not an Ace parking.
Do you guys find, and I've found this for the past 3 years, since we've been working on this pretty heavily and been convinced that it's difficult to help other people because you all of a sudden take their ideas and compare them to this. And you're just like, there's no way.
Okay. Last week, somebody on the Discord server said, hey, will you look at my, San Francisco theory, San Francisco solution? I said, of course I'll look at it. And I looked at it and, it was an extremely well thought out theory, but compared to what we had, there were some obvious problems with it. And, but yeah, no, I'll still look at other people's San Francisco theory.
Yeah.
But
I just feel like the bar to convince me is a lot higher now.
It is now. Yeah.
It is 1,000% higher now. Before I would look at anything. Did I have like my little bias on like, the for sure, like this seems silly. And you'd see some pretty decent solves, but you know what I mean? Like nothing ever really, but I was always open to check stuff out.
Sure.
Yeah.
I still am.
Yeah, me too. It's just,
you know, it's just now the bar is here.
Yeah.
So
you gotta provide something extremely compelling to pull me off of any of this stuff, except for maybe Twain.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you even wrestle Twain out of this situation anymore. I don't even think Twain matters, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, I think it's telling you to go in a direction that you're already going. We just skip over it.
You go across, there's something there in the Jules, casks, Jules direction, and who cares?
Yeah.
Because
honestly, not a single one of the found casks was completely solved.
Oh yeah. I know we've done podcasts about that. Like there are huge missing pieces of bunch of them.
Just having just one line that you don't understand is a great accomplishment.
It is.
Now that said, we don't have a cask in hand.
No, it's true.
But I'm pretty sure I know where it is or was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know where it was.
I agree with you.
And I feel like we should
down to the square foot.
Yeah.
Okay. Not
square
it might
foot.
be anywhere in this down to here.
Down to a probably how wide is a planter versus
the size of
a cinder block.
How far apart? Exactly. Yeah. And
all right.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with it from there.
Do we have anything else that we want to tack on, or is that it? Because I feel like that's a good way to end.